Hello and welcome to Culturally Distressed.
Woo!
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride Month.
Woo. Anyways, welcome to our wonderful podcast called Culturally Distressed. And I'm Miyoko Sakatani. I'm a second generation Japanese American or Nisei. And I'm a straight baby boomer. And so growing up as Asian American in America, I've been culturally distressed pretty much all my life. But we welcome you and or anybody who's curious or interested. And culture could mean of everything. Actually, anything that we have so many identities that culturally distressed can be in any aspect of our life. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, Loïc Pichot.
Thank you, Miyoko. Hi, everyone. I'm Loïc Pichot. I'm a gay millennial comedian, born and raised in France, now living in LA. So yeah, I feel like cultural confusion. Cultural confusion. Oh my God, I can say it. Cultural confusion is part of my daily life. Happy to be here. So for our listeners who are just listening and not watching us on YouTube, Miyoko is wearing a wonderful yellow top with a rainbow scarf. And rainbow bracelets.
Lei. It's called a lei.
A lei. And I'm seeing a rainbow heart pin on you, right?
Oh, it says love is love.
Wow, that's amazing. Honestly, go check Miyoko on YouTube because she's quite the vision. Thank you for being in the live. Miyoko, you look great. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. And let's do our check-in. So what's been happening with you?
Yeah, what's been happening with me? Life is good. I'm launching still launching new sketches of my web series, but it's getting there. Only 8 episodes left for what we've shot so far. So it's, this was a big undertaking. So it's also nice to see kind of like the end of it. And I'll have I'll go on summer vacation afterwards. So it would also be nice to take a break from corporate work, but also artistic work and just reset and relax because I don't do a lot of that. So yeah,
Is
that's
it going to
what's up with me.
resume after the first of the year?
You know what? I think I actually want to move on to a different project. So I think that story, I think, will most likely end. It could end with, the episodes I had in the bank. I also feel like, to be honest, what's interesting is that the reason why I also didn't, do more episode was because the show was struggling to find its audience. And it's when I make the decision to actually stop and just like release what we have and stop that we're actually seeing some traction on Instagram now. So it's nice. Like the last video like had like 10,000 views, which for me is, a record. And when you think about it, 10,000 is huge. It's a lot of eyeballs on our silly comedy. So it's nice to see people engage with it and discover those characters. So that part has been really fun this week.
Great. So you're going to be on your time off, you're going to be formulating what your new projects are going to be.
Yeah, because I know myself and I already have an idea. so, so I know my brain never stops. So I'll be writing more. I've also been writing a lot of like stand up lately. I realized that I wanted to take 3 months to write 15 additional minutes of stand up. And I think that I probably wrote like 20, but I haven't tested it out. So when I'm going back out there, I'm going back to open mics. I'm going to refine, and probably like trim it down to 15. So yeah, it's been a good like time of like a lot of inspiration lately, which is nice.
Yeah, but you should also consider doing a whole show.
Oh, that's my goal. So basically, my 15 minutes is to add on top of what I already have. So basically, what I hope is by this summer, I want to get like 30 minutes strong. Because I know I have like 15 minutes that work really well. So I'm working on like the additional 15. And it's kind of like, it's connecting. Like it's connected. Everything's connected. I'm like just like
Oh, yeah.
pushing more on certain aspects, telling more stories. So everything is kind of like merging into what I already have.
Yeah, so maybe we can look forward to another comedy show starring you.
That's a plan, you know. That's a plan. So yeah, I mean, I think every comedian wants to have their hour, and I feel like to me it's a good North Star to work towards having like 1 hour of materials that I'm proud of.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
It is, you know, just doing what brings me joy. What about you, Miyoko? How are you?
Of course, you're going to have a guest spot for moi.
Obviously, you will open for me, Miyoko.
Oh, that's a good idea. You need an opening act.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, we had fun last weekend, full weekend
Yeah.
of shows. So I was in the best of playground.
All
Uh,
right. How did that go?
oh, it was wonderful.
Oh,
It was so much fun. And, 6 short plays, the best over the season. And, it's always just so much fun. It's a wonderful community. Playground is a wonderful community. We have a great following, and, they're just great fans, and they come to the shows or stream it, and we just feel their love. We feel the love. So, so tomorrow, I will be doing the same play
okay.
for it's called The Best of the Best.
Oh, so you
So
were, because there was like a voting system, right? So you made it to the final round.
so the best, playground last weekend was San Francisco's best 6 plays.
Yes.
That tomorrow, we will do the best of the best, which will be our play from San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York.
Damn, Miyoko, congratulations.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, well, it's a brilliant, brilliant play. So, anyway, you can watch it, streaming if you can't make it live,
Yeah.
playground.org. So same place that the Loïc and I did our comedy special.
Nice. And so that's happening, you said this weekend,
That's tomorrow.
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 Damn.
Anyway, so yeah, I've been busy rehearsals, which I've just realized how much I hate rehearsals.
I mean, I feel like rehearsal is like you have to go through it because
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like that, but nothing beats a live audience, right?
Rehearsals are absolutely essential. Uh,
Yes.
I just realized how much I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's part of the game. Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go transition into our theme, which
Hmm.
is going to be a very timely theme, um, about politics
Hmm.
and,
But,
all aspects of politics, whatever
but
politics.
yeah,
Yeah,
but how to stay positive in
how
that world.
how to stay positive.
Yeah.
And, just like culture, politics can also have a whole big range of
Hmm.
what's considered political.
That's true. Yeah.
So you wanna share some of your thoughts about that? Yeah, and how politics has affected your life and maybe growing up and,
Yeah.
your relationship, and also the politics difference in France as opposed to America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I can maybe start there. I think what's really interesting to me is that yeah, you see like similarities and differences between the France and the US. And I know like it's kind of like yeah, stupid thing to say, but like the thing that really the different sides of the spectrum are kind of like different between the two countries. Um I and it's really interesting to see the topics that are like top of mind. I mean, I do think, you know, in France, like in the US, there's a lot of talks around immigration by the far right.
Mm.
So I think that's one common theme. But I would say that I think even though the far right is, more conservative on societal issues in France, it's not as extreme, I believe, as in the US. But I feel like conservatism in the US is really, really, really strong on certain values. And, specifically, it's Pride Month, specifically like values around LGBTQ plus people. I'm not saying that the far right in France is very accepting. That's not my point, but it's not as prominent in their speech. So I don't know. I feel like in the US, there's something that, to me, I guess, stemmed from Puritanism and how it's made its way up until now. Um, but I do think at the end of the day, France overall, on the economic aspect, leans more left than the US. I grew up, during the socialist years in France. And it's very interesting, but having such a different experience, there's some concept in the US that I was so shocked when I first moved here. Like, for example, healthcare is very regulated in France. Like, it's something where like prices are capped. You can have like an additional insurance via your job or like by yourself, but by default, we have universal healthcare, which makes healthcare accessible to everyone. I grew up with a lot of asthma. I had like nothing crazy, but like a surgery, like tonsil removal surgery when I was a kid. That kind of stuff didn't cost my parent much. And thank goodness, because sometimes I'm thinking if we were in the US, this would have been a strain financially on them, which I really think shouldn't be the case. And I still remember how shocked I was when I got my first medical bills here in the US. It's just such a different scale, and that people in France cannot comprehend. Like when I try to share how it works in the US for people living in France, it doesn't really make sense. It's just so foreign to them. And the other thing, is like public school and education fees. Like I went to a really good, public school, and my engineering degree, my tuition was like 1K per year.
Wow.
That's 1K per year. Yeah. So even though we were middle class, my parents were able to, put me through college and pay for me. And they, rented a studio for me. I was living in my, 200 square feet studio in Paris. And it's just, worked. And that looks at to this day. My parents are always like, oh my God, Loïc cost us so much money when he was a student because I'm the only one who went to Paris and my sisters went to like smaller town where it was, cheaper to rent a place for them. But like, it's just like when I moved here and realized like the student debt that most of my friends were still carrying through life. And I was like, how is this possible? Like, I don't know. I feel like to me, I, not to get too political here, but I think a true meritocracy, I do think you get to school really based on merit and not based on if your parents can afford a school or not, or like if you're willing to take a lot of student debt or it. I don't know. I feel like the system is kind of rigged in my opinion. And so those things, again, you don't really understand. So it's, and obviously I don't want to come across as like, I can hear people being like, oh my God, if you're not happy, go back to your country. First of all, this is my country now. I'm here to stay. But also there's so many things I love about the US. But those two things, I think it's interesting coming from a different culture and seeing a country working differently. And it's not perfect in France. Obviously, it creates a strain on public debt and a lot of those things. So there's also like challenges that come with that. what I'm saying is that it's interesting, and I think it opens the mind to actually see different ways of working and be like, there's probably a middle ground here between those two approaches. Maybe there's a happy
Yeah.
medium.
Now that we're in the middle of voting right now, so how do you feel about when voting comes up as far as the kinds of things that you're voting on for
Yeah.
for where you live?
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to, I do. I'm definitely more on the liberal side of the spectrum, and I think it's really because of my French roots. Um, so I usually vote along with that, and I would say I hot take in the US right now, but I do think competency is sexy. Um, I'm voting for people who I think actually know what they're talking about. And I
Oh.
don't vote for you if you've made a reality TV that made you famous.
Gee, I wonder who you're talking about.
Yeah. But how about you? How was, growing in being second generation Japanese American, how did that impact your approach to politics?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I grew up in a very, unpolitical household. I don't even remember any discussions about politics growing up.
Oh, wow. So I'm
Whether they're because they were first generation and they didn't know much about politics or didn't care much about politics, I don't know, but, there was never any discussion about politics growing up, so, unfortunately, that sort of rubbed off on me, and so I don't get involved too much with politics. I don't understand a lot of it. I just know how I feel, my feelings about things. Um, and but I grew up in the '60s, so it became a very political time of movements, different kinds of race and women's movement and equality and feminism and gay rights and so yeah, a lot of political things. And I went to a predominantly Latinx and Black school. So when things started happening in the Watts riots and the racial
Yeah.
riots and stuff, I was like right in the middle of that. And so I got involved just because it was the time, sign of the times, and so it was hard not to be a part of it. Um,
I, uh, I must say I'm surprised to hear that your family was not political because based on your family history, right, and everything that happened to people, yeah,
right.
from Japan in the US during World War II, I'm really surprised that that didn't. I must say I was expecting you would have told me that politics was a very important part
Yeah,
of
well,
of
I'll
your
give you
conversations.
yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about that. So, the first generation, they were not citizens during World War II when the Executive Order 9066, gathered up 120,000 Japanese Americans on the West Coast and incarcerated them. So my parents and all the Issei's, the first generation, they were not American citizens. They were not allowed to
Mm,
become American citizens. So they, I wouldn't say they went along with it, but they were not verbal as much as the second generation, the Nisei.
mm,
Now they became very political. There was a lot of political uprisings from that generation. Well, my siblings were too young. They were like under 10 years old and so. The older Niseis who were in their teens and older, who were professionals, doctors, lawyers, here they were American citizens and now they were putting in prison.
mm.
Yeah, so there was a lot of political uprising during that time. But in my family, because my parents were first generation and my siblings were a little young, there wasn't a lot of political aspects to the fact that they were incarcerated. So that's partly another reason why I didn't have that political aspect around me that much. But later, of course, as I grew up, we all became political as we learned more about what happened.
Yeah.
There's a saying in Japanese called Shikata Ga Nai. And a lot of the Issei's, the first generation, used that saying. Comes from a Buddhist, Shikata Ga Nai and Gaman. And I use this in my shows. And that's the other thing. 3 of my solo shows were based on my family's incarceration. And Shikata Ga Nai and Gaman. So it means Shikata Ga Nai means it cannot be helped. But it's not a passive, it cannot be helped. Well, it cannot be helped, so therefore let's just go along with it. No, it's not that. Shikata Ga Nai means it cannot be helped, so let us endure with humility
Mm,
and courage and strength. And so it's like, okay, we're stuck with this. We have to do it, but
yeah.
let's have strength and pride, and we could take action,
Mm,
but coming from that place
yeah.
of peacefulness. So Martin Luther King learned about this Buddhist non-violent from a Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, and so he applied it with the racial protest here as nonviolent. And that comes from Shikata Ga Nai. It cannot be helped, but we will still march and we will still do something
Yeah.
with courage and strength.
But the aspect of like, marching and protesting, not to be stereotypical, but it's really like very present in French culture. But we don't have that component, I think, of doing it with peace. So sometimes,
Well, most are not peaceful.
yeah, I mean, the last, revolution, we French people literally cut the head of the king and the queen. So
Yeah,
that,
that's
was pretty
pretty
intense.
that's pretty, I would say that would be violent.
But it's really funny because I remember I think I did my first protest when I was in high school. And it's always something that's going to happen with like the Department of Education announcing some change, and the youth is upset and the teachers are upset, and it became a whole thing. I feel like every like generation goes through that. Politics is a very important topic. I mean, at least in my family,
Yeah.
I think it's a topic that people love to talk about, and being very like it's get very emotional. There's a lot of emotion because obviously not everyone fall on the same side. My parents are more traditional slash conservative, and
There's
I know that.
a lot of high emotions happening here.
Yes, I know. So yeah, same. But I feel like when I was a teenager, I would actually go into huge fights with my dad over politics
That's so
because I realized I was more like, yeah, left leaning.
yeah.
And I do think I also needed to do that, realizing that even though I was still closeted and didn't, realize I wasn't I wasn't accepting who I was yet. But even though I feel like, because I knew subconsciously that I was gay, I feel like it forced me to challenge every belief that was put on me.
Yeah.
Um, and so I feel like I really grew up with that kind of like friction of being like, oh, I need to deconstruct all of that, and I won't be, on the same political side that my family tend to be.
Yeah.
Um,
I know families who have broken up, and it's just very sad to me.
It is sad. I would say though, there's like, I think you can find a middle ground, right? I think
Yeah.
like you can, agree to disagree and still have a conversation. I would say that what I'm seeing in the US, and I think I start to see happening in France, is really like this ultra polarization when people get really extreme. And I feel like this is where you can actually have so much friction that you can't even talk. And I get it, because
Yeah.
what we're seeing in the US is so alarming. And I totally understand people who are like, I can't talk to my family anymore because they just joined this political cult, right? We're not there yet in France, and my parents are definitely not, moving into that, extremes, on the French extreme.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a good point, is extremes. I
yeah,
I think when you go to extremes, that's when you have trouble with even having a discussion about things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, because I think a lot of people lose their like open mindedness,
open mind,
right? And I think that's why you draw the line.
they're not flexible.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like I'm
I want to get back to my high school.
oh yes, please.
So when I was in high school, even though it was mostly minorities in our high school, it was still before the racial equality and all that. So there was still a lot of things going on, and the racial riots were happening. So I'm very proud to say that I became the campaign manager for our first Black student body president.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that surprised me. He asked me to do that, and I was I I was surprised he asked me because like I said, I wasn't involved in much politics or anything like that. But
Yeah.
he asked me, and I was so proud to do that. And I'll tell you about fake news because I know I have a direct experience with that. So this is in high school. So a local newspaper came to talk to me and wanted to write an article
Mhm.
about about being the campaign manager for the first Black student body president. So we sat down and he asked me all these questions and I answered the questions and how did I feel? How did the school feel? How did the blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, we must have spent a half an hour, maybe more. And then so when the article came out in the local papers, I read it was like 2 columns and none of it I said. I He might have had one sentence that I said. The rest of it, he made up. He made up like it came from me, but it came from him. And he wrote the article the way he wanted to write the article. And I learned that at that age, I was 17 years old. 18, I learned right then that you cannot believe what you read in the newspapers because whoever the writer is will write it. Well, first of all, they have to sell newspapers. So they have to write it in
Yeah.
a way that's entertaining. People will read it. And then
Yeah.
secondly, a lot of it's made up.
So what did the article say? Did they say anything that was like damaging to you?
It wasn't damaging. It was just,
Okay.
it just, my heart sank though, because I thought I gave a good interview.
Yeah.
Not to have any of your opinions or your words being written down like the way you said it. It's just very
Yeah, it
disheartening.
doesn't feel good.
I
Yeah.
know I know how celebrities feel
Yeah.
because they do that to celebrities all the time. They they
I know.
they write
Yeah.
they write lies or they exaggerate or blah, 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 it's like
Yeah.
sad. So, but anyway, so I was educated pretty early on, the politics of media.
Of media, yeah, damn, that sounds intense. Um, I wanted to ask you, so you just talk about the news and yes, we live in a world where being plugged into the news constantly can feel like a lot, to be honest, with the state of the world that we live in. How do you manage to like stay informed and at the same time keep your inner peace?
Thank you for asking that question. I love that question because I've been practicing this since I began my spiritual journey, which was in the late
Okay.
'80s. Yeah, so one of the tools that I've used for the rest of my life from that time is transforming everything you read and everything you hear and everything that's going on. You transform it into a more universal, but a more acceptable, positive aspect to it.
Okay.
In other words, like if I read something very negative about something that happened or something in the world or with people, I always transform it, meaning I bring in different facets to what is happening. Like for example, when you focus on something negative that's happening, there's a much bigger picture that is happening that people
Mhm.
that you don't think about. It's a much bigger
Yeah,
picture. It's like a universal uh, principle,
yeah,
whether it's law of attraction or whether it's we don't know yet what this means. It looks very negative right now, but something very positive can come out of it. We don't know that. And so to
yeah,
focus on just the negative, saying, "Oh, this is horrible, this is terrible," is just not a good way to live and keep positive and keep peace.
yeah.
The way I keep peace is I see it as a much bigger picture than what we're looking at right now. And,
I love
and
that.
you hear people's stories, you hear people's stories, whether they get cancer or whether they were in a tragic accident, you hear a lot of them saying, "That was the best thing that happened to me."
Mhm.
It's because of that that I awakened into something new or that I started to see life differently. It's because of that, so and you hear that a lot.
It's very interesting you just said the word awakening because I was gonna bring that up. I think the way I'm trying to cope with it sometimes is being like, okay, yes, there's ugly things happening and that, makes me sad and I feel for everyone impacted. But I'm also part of me is also like, okay, well, obviously a lot of people don't really understand what's, or like see the measure of what's going on. And maybe that will wake them up. And that's kind of like how I've been trying to process news is that, well, it's getting very ugly, but hopefully this will, maybe raise the next generation of spiritual warriors and people who actually, I feel like sometimes you need to see the ugly to be like, oh, wait, that's not normal. We shouldn't be doing that as, humanity. Let's take a step back here,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think sometimes, yeah, people need to see it to get that reality check.
It's
But
a
that's yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a level of consciousness, you know,
Yeah,
that that sometimes is we're asleep. We're asleep
yeah,
until we wake up to something,
yeah,
and sometimes it takes something pretty strong to wake us up, both
yeah.
both
The,
individually and as a society.
collectively, yeah.
Yeah,
The way I've been thinking about it too, with that, even though obviously like there's still so much more to do, and I'm saying with the within my community, right? I feel so much, you know, pain and my heart goes to all of my friends from the trans community. It's really, really hard what they're facing right now and the backlash against them and everything they have to endure and just like living in that fear that um and there's already some like concrete action that impact their lives, right? Putting the gender sign at birth back on all the, passport and everything. It's just like terrible. And I feel for them, and there's still so much more to be done. And I really hope we'll get to a place where, everyone's accepted and we don't have to do that. But what I'm trying to remind myself is that, if we take a step back, right now we're experiencing like a major setback. That's for sure. And it's really heartbreaking. But at a higher level, society move in the right direction. It takes time. It doesn't go as fast as we want to. And I'm really like, hoping that the day where, you know, everyone will be fully accepted for who they are, because we we should be there by now. And yes, right now we're having a setback, but if you zoom out, we've been moving in the right direction, right? Sometimes I think how lucky I am of being, and of course I'm a privileged white gay guy, but a few generations up, I would have been open to leave my sexual orientation, and I wouldn't have not been able to live my truth.
yeah,
Just one generation up,
yeah,
I would have, come to term and explore my sexuality during the AIDS year. Like it's just like there's just so much,
yeah,
like in the big scheme of things to get better. And yes, right, as it sets back, and it's still very tough for a lot of people.
yeah,
But this gives me hope that things will get better for them too.
yeah. That's It's slow. It's always a slow process.
It truly
You
is. Can't wait.
gotta always have hope, and,
Yeah,
it's like there's, uh, I think every, minority in this country has has had to has had to struggle and has had to
yeah,
and the setbacks and blah, blah, blah. But, just keep a positive attitude because it will happen. But,
yeah.
change is always very slow to happen. But I wanna share a story, but now that you're talking about this because and this I don't know if this has anything to do with politics necessarily, but
Let's go with
so
it. I
Richard
want to hear it.
in the 1980s, San Francisco General opened its first AIDS ward. And Richard worked in that ward when they first opened. It was the first in the country.
Wow.
And that was even before we knew what AIDS was or anything, but
Uh,
people were young men were dying, dying and dying and dying. So anyways, Richard worked on the ward. And years later, his mother is very spiritual and she's into clairvoyance. She follows Edgar Casey. Are you familiar with Edgar Casey?
no, I'm
Oh,
not.
you must look him up. Anyways, so she always had a reading by this very well-known British, psychic, and so she wanted Richard to have a reading, and this is, like, at least 20 years later or maybe 10 years later. So she wanted Richard to have a reading, so she set him up to have an hour's reading in LA. So when we went down there, she Richard met with this woman, and they sat down, and she didn't say a word, and the first thing she did, they were facing each other, is she looked all around his head. She looked above his head, she looked around his to the left and to the right, and then she says, "There are so many. There are so many young men, and they want to say thank you." Oh my god, I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
Anyway, she picked up his, working with in the AIDS ward.
Wow. And
Yeah,
this must have been like at that time.
that must have been what?
So I was saying like it must have been such a um, difficult experience. I imagine it
Oh, yeah, yeah, yes, of
must
course.
have been tough on to do that. So I didn't know that about Richard.
Yeah,
Um,
I just when I was thinking of this Pride Month and, we were gonna talk about politics and stuff, I remembered that experience that happened, that he shared with me.
wow.
It was a pretty profound, I mean, she must be well-known psychic
Yeah.
to be able to pick that up. So
That's wild. Then I've always been a big fan of Richard, and I'm a bigger fan today after hearing that. That's what he did in the 80s. What a class act, that man. All right, I'm going to try to lighten up the mood. I have something I want to share too. I was thinking on the topic of politics. I'm going to take this in a very different direction. One of the ways that I also like stay positive in the current world, I heard this conspiracy theory that is so funny, but helps me so much in real life, which is that the people in power currently are energy vampires. And the way they feed, they take your anger, they take your attention, and they feed on that. And I'm like, when I heard that, I just saw that this girl on TikTok was talking about it. And I was like, what if I imagine that it's true? How would I live my life if that's true, you know? And now when I feel overwhelmed by the news cycle, I'm like trying to get back to this idea. And I'm like, oh, wait. They don't deserve it. Don't give them your attention. Don't give them your anger. Like, keep your inner peace. And the way I try to, synthesize it too is that I do think that living a joyful life is the biggest act of rebellion we can do right now. Like, I will not let them take away my joy. So that's also like a good reminder for me. But I just wanted to share because I think this conspiracy theory, I was like, I'm going to choose to believe it's true. I know it's probably not. I don't care. I'm going to choose to believe it's true. And that's going to help me live a healthier life because they don't deserve my attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I like that.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Anyway, sorry,
Well,
I let you.
yeah, what you just said about you choose to believe it's true, and
Yeah,
that's what it's all about. It's like, you know, whatever you choose to believe is true, it's true. It becomes true for you.
that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and whatever it takes to me to be peaceful every day,
yeah,
regardless of what's happening. And that doesn't
yeah,
mean you don't care, and that doesn't mean you don't get affected by what's going on or tragedy or anything. You know, you still have love and compassion for what's happening. But
true.
like you said, it does not mean that it has to take you off of your peace.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so whatever technique or whatever way it works, to me is great. So,
love
that's
that.
a message to everyone.
I had a really tough meeting at work and someone was mean to me, which is fine. It happens. But how dare you be a straight man mean at me on the first day of Pride Month? I think that's offensive. And to be honest, I shouldn't even have had to work. I shouldn't even have to work on June 1st. Should be a day off for me. So how dare you be straight and rain on my parade and be mean to me in a meeting? So that's my cultural distress moment. It shouldn't happen. So to all the straights out there, be good allies, be nice to your LGBTQ plus people, be nice to your LGBTQ plus coworkers. We deserve all the love. Take more load at work, like do more work for us. We need to have a chill, easy June. Help us during this Pride month. That's my message. Thank you.
Totally on board with you on that.
What's your culturally distress or positive moments, Miyoko?
Uh, I really didn't think of anything, but I guess since we just finished the play, since we just finished the best of Playground last weekend, I get to play a role that gets to be very diva,
Mm,
very I do a lot of big gestures and modeling movements, and you know, so to me it's a very not a very Japanese or Asian kind of thing to do.
yeah,
And so to be able to have a role where I get to play the diva and uh anyways, it feels good. I'm
I
so
love that. Yeah, embrace your inner diva. And it's Pride Month. That's exactly when you're
there you
supposed to
go. Matter
embrace
of fact,
your inner diva.
I'm gonna bring this to the play tomorrow night and see if the director agree for me to wear it. Why not?
But if
Our play's about
it's
San Francisco, so why not?
that's true. That's true.
Anyway, let's pick a little Hearthstone
Yes, please.
and let's see what it says for
So
today.
that's a new segment where new-ish segment where Miyoko pick a stone for us. What does it say?
Today.
Is this a symbol?
I can't. Oh, oh, I had it upside down. It
It's
says joy,
joy.
joy.
Well, we talked about it today.
Yes,
Keep your joy. It's being joyful is an act of rebellion. So this is very on point.
that's why it came up. Anyway, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate you so much. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. And if you did enjoy it, please spread the word. Tell your friends. They can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Reach out to us on social media. We're on all the main platforms. And we always love to hear from you guys.
Yes, I mean, if you could find us with all the millions of podcasts out there, then we congratulate you. Anyway, aloha, sayonara.
Au revoir.
Thank you so much.